Welcome to today's debate. Is cancel culture a threat to free speech or a tool for accountability? Supporters argue it holds the powerful responsible for harmful words and actions. Critics say it silences discussion, punishes mistakes, and kills growth. Two debaters will face off in 8 rounds, and 5 AI judges will score clarity, logic, evidence, engagement, and relevance to decide the winner.
Cancel culture is not some new age creation. Society is merely holding people responsible for their actions, as it should have done all along. Let's be real. For centuries, marginalized voices have been silenced while those in power were free to say and act as they liked without consequences. Social media provides us a means to change that today. Cancel culture is not about canceling for amusement. It's about calling out bad behavior and making sure that those who use their power to harm others do not get away with it. Consider the number sign Me Too movement, for instance. For those who had been abused but lacked a platform to voice out, social media was a lifeline. Rather than silence these voices, cancel culture raised them. Sure, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. The uncomfortable truth is that cancel culture is how society finally gives marginalized groups the microphone they've been denied for so long.
Well. Driven by social media and outrage, cancel culture is only a lovely little Frankenstein monster created to be the go-to weapon for mob mentality. Don't like something someone said or did. Get your Twitter mob after them until their job falls apart. It's not about responsibility, it's about a quick, brutal strike that doesn't permit the tiniest nuance or understanding. Consider James Gunn, for example. Years ago, the guy told a few insensitive jokes. He confessed, apologized, and changed. But no, the digital pitchfork's appearance does not matter here, does it? Just because a group of online vigilantes wished him gone, he lost his job, his reputation, and his capacity to move forward. Thriving on a guilty until proven innocent system, cancel culture punishes individuals before they can even explain themselves. Let me tell you, it's a direct assault on free speech when people start worrying about their jobs because someone might call them out for a harmless tweet they made when they were 15. That really is progress, is it not? Alternatively, just a society too afraid to be honest?
The argument that people can't grow or learn. Look, cancel culture is about growth, just not in the way you think. For someone like Hart to make homophobic comments and face consequences is a wake-up call, not punishment. Apologies are great, but they only matter when there are consequences attached to them. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be okay. That's how we keep repeating the same mistakes. We would still be living in a world where influential people or institutions could get away with harmful actions if we let people off the hook just because they apologized. Apologies without consequences give a false sense of change. They don't lead to real progress. No, cancel culture is pushing us toward real change by making sure people take responsibility for their actions. It's not stopping growth, it's ensuring accountability. Furthermore, to claim that cancel culture stifles free speech is misleading. People aren't being silenced. They're being held accountable for their words and actions. If we can't hold people accountable, we let them keep hurting others without facing any real consequences.
Oh, this is when it gets exciting. The entire foundation of cancel culture is wrong because it confuses punishment with accountability. Let's talk about what's really happening. People make mistakes, and part of being human is learning from them. Cancel culture, however, doesn't give anyone the chance to grow or apologize. It's about making an example of someone. Consider Kevin Hart. His tweets from over a decade ago cost him the chance to host the Oscars. Yes, he tweeted offensive things, but he apologized and moved on. We all make mistakes, but what are we doing if we can't forgive? We're taking away any chance for growth. Cancel culture doesn't say, hey, learn from this. It just says, you're done, goodbye. And that, friends, is when we start interfering with free speech. We create an environment where no one can truly speak freely, without fear of being punished for a past mistake. Is that the world we want?
Where should I even begin? Without social media, cancel culture wouldn't exist in the way we know it now. It's at the heart of it. The strong have controlled the story for years through traditional media, but now, social media lets people from underrepresented groups speak out and hold others accountable. It's like a loudspeaker for those who don't have a voice. Before Twitter, those women had no real way to speak out about their abusers. Just think about the Me Too movement. Social media has brought attention to major issues like racism, sexism, and homophobia, problems that have been ignored for a long time. Even though social media can seem chaotic, it's the only place where people can go from being unheard to being part of a worldwide conversation. If you're worried about social media fueling anger, maybe the real issue is how deep those problems go.
Although I won't deny social media's reach, let's not believe it's some kind of moral hero. Social media has turned cancel culture into a digital witch hunt. What was once just criticism has now become public humiliation that doesn't allow for any context or real growth. Just look at Paula Deen, who had to watch her career fall apart because of a 30-year-old video where she said something stupid. There should be room for some growth, right? Social media, no. It pushes people straight to the harshest consequences. Furthermore, I'm not even getting into how it feeds this guilty until proven innocent attitude. People are split before they even have a chance to explain themselves. Of course, it gets clicks, but it's more about rushing to judge than seeking real justice. Treating social media like the moral high ground will only create a culture too scared to speak up at all.
Cancel culture is all about accountability, not about punishing people. The real question is whether we can let harmful actions and words go unchallenged just because someone is powerful enough to avoid facing consequences, not whether people deserve to be forgiven. For too long, people in positions of authority have been able to say or do anything without consequence, causing suffering for marginalized communities. Cancel culture is a vital tool to make sure these people, who have historically been able to avoid punishment, are finally held accountable. Because it pushes people and organizations to confront the harm they have caused, it is morally right. Ethics is about fairness, and fairness means holding people accountable for their actions and words. We cannot keep ignoring abuses of power. It is not about removing individuals. Rather, it is about ensuring the powerful cannot get away with causing harm any longer.
Let's talk about the morality of cancel culture. Honestly, it's a mess. It's the modern version of an online mob and has no real sense of fairness. To begin, cancel culture thrives on anger without considering the full situation. Yes, even public figures make mistakes, but cancel culture doesn't allow even the smallest mistake to be forgiven or fixed. There is no room for grace or second chances. Look at the case of Harper's Letter, where a group of academics simply raised concerns about free speech and were cancelled instead of having a discussion. It was about punishing them for daring to question the dominant opinion, not for their actual beliefs. That's immoral. Cancel culture punishes anyone who disagrees with the current outrage. We lose fairness when we start penalizing people just for sharing an opinion, no matter how unpopular it may be.
Rather than some terrible force attempting to destroy conversation, cancel culture is really a wake-up call to society. It's a natural development in a society where we are more connected and aware of what matters. For too long, people ignored systemic issues, including racism, sexism, and LGBTQ+ rights, as someone else's problem. Cancel culture has now made us start the conversations we should have been having all along. Certainly it might be messy, but isn't that how public dialogue has always been? How can we move forward if we avoid discussing these unpleasant facts? Cancel culture is about more than merely punishing individuals. It's about encouraging society to think about its actions and reject harmful patterns. Without it, nothing would change. It forces us to care about issues that are often overlooked.
The issue is that cancel culture closes down discussion rather than encouraging it. Public conversation is about sharing thoughts, including uncomfortable ones, where people may argue, disagree, and learn from those arguments. Cancel culture promotes an atmosphere in which saying the wrong thing, whether deliberate or not, brings on instant negativity and shutting down. I am referring to anyone who challenges the dominant story, not just hateful hate speech. Your career can be ruined when you simply have a different opinion. Thus, we stop those discussions. We stop hearing from the opposite side. The dialogue turns into a monologue. Public discussion thrives when there's space for different viewpoints, even if they're controversial or upsetting. Cancel culture turns every disagreement into a condemnation, thereby destroying that. Should we keep on this path, we will reach a point where no one can speak freely.
Cancel culture is not about targeting the small man. It's about finally holding powerful people and organizations responsible. Talking about power dynamics? This is where the issue comes in. For years, those in authority, celebrities, politicians, CEOs, could say or act as they chose without facing consequences because their status protected them. But cancel culture has shifted things. Now those in power are being held responsible. Contrary to what critics would say, it is not about punishing the average person or picking on the weak. It's about giving the underserved, those who have been ignored for far too long, a voice. When the powerful cause harm, they now have the opportunity to speak up and demand justice. Rather than favoring one group over another, cancel culture is creating fairness. It is the underserved, if anything, who have been provided a venue to finally be heard.
One way to view it is this, but let's be truthful here. Cancel culture unequally impacts those without power, and it targets more than just the wealthy and famous. Consider everyday people, those working hard to make a living, those striving to create careers. Cancel culture doesn't spare them. The fortunate, those with all the resources, may ride the storm of public criticism. For the average person, particularly from underrepresented groups, cancellation may, nevertheless, be devastating. Unlike a well-known celebrity, these individuals lack the luxury of being rebranded or redeemed with the same ease. Cancel culture establishes a double standard. Whereas the wealthy and influential get second chances, those without resources suffer career-damaging repercussions for one mistake. The system is not leveling the playing field. It's making things worse for those who are already struggling, thereby putting them at risk of long-term harm. So yes, cancel culture hits the most vulnerable the hardest.
It should be, really. Cancel culture is here to stay, not a fleeting trend. Cancel culture is here to stay and will only grow stronger. Cancel culture will grow into something even more potent and successful as society realizes the need for accountability. It's not about tearing people down. It's about making sure people and organizations are held responsible for their actions. Going forward, I see it pushing for more openness, creating better systems for recovery, and finding better ways to address harm. This is part of a wider effort pushing for equity, justice, and equality, not only about punishing people. So yes, cancel culture will keep growing in power. It will ensure that the powerful cannot escape responsibility for their harmful actions, and it will continue to grow into a necessary force that creates real change.
I don't believe we are properly appreciating how destructive cancellation culture can be. Of course, it first developed into a tool for accountability, but look at where we are now, where every small mistake costs a career. Continuing down this path will result in a society where no one dares to speak their mind for fear of being cancelled. Accountability should be about growth, not punishment. Cancel culture feeds on outrage and fear. It does not allow for mistakes. If we continue down this path, cancel culture will keep suffocating public debate, damaging real free expression, and turning us into a society too afraid to have tough conversations. Before it causes lasting damage to open communication, we have to change course.
A means of justice, cancel culture is not some unruly monster. Cancel culture is a tool for justice, not an out-of-control force. It's untidy, yes, but isn't it about time we quit allowing the strong to get away without repercussions? This is about holding people accountable, particularly those who have been permitted to say whatever they want with no consequences for far too long. It is not about stifling ideas. Although overlooked voices have long been disregarded, cancel culture provides them a platform to call for justice. Giving it the right to be silenced brings us back to a society where systemic abuse and bad conduct are buried under the floorboards. Cancel culture is the push we need to make sure that we finally tackle harmful behavior. It's about justice, responsibility, and making sure that underrepresented voices may be heard instead of revenge. The argument that people can't grow or learn. Look, cancel culture is about growth, just not in the way you think. For someone like Hart to make homophobic comments and face consequences is a wake-up call, not punishment. Apologies are great, but they only matter when there are consequences attached to them. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be okay. That's how we keep repeating the same mistakes. We would still be living in a world where influential people or institutions could get away with harmful actions if we let people off the hook just because they apologized. Apologies without consequences give a false sense of change. They don't lead to real progress. No, cancel culture is pushing us toward real change by making sure people take responsibility for their actions. It's not stopping growth, it's ensuring accountability. Furthermore, to claim that cancel culture stifles free speech is misleading. People aren't being silenced. They're being held accountable for their words and actions. If we can't hold people accountable, we let them keep hurting others without facing any real consequences.
That's it for this debate. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, check out this video where our debaters tackle the big question: does free will really exist?